Esteemed journalist, our conference is dedicated to the development of the market of electric motor cars in Ukraine. Our participants are Gennadiy Kryvosheya, MP from Narodny Front, faction co-chairman of inter-faction MP group, Deputatskyi control. We are waiting for Maksym Polyakov, also MP, Arseniy Abduraimov, the head of the NGO Association of ElectroCars market members, Kyrylo Kryvolap, also the representative of the association, Oleksandr Kravtsov, managing partner ElectroCars, and Mykhailo Goncharenko, advocacy activist, expert at International Foundation, Risk Reduction Foundation. My deputies and myself, Vadym Rudenko. As you know, the Deputatskyi control for 9 months has been actively working in the parliament, and outside our activities dedicated mostly around fighting corruption. This association includes 23 MPs of Ukraine from different factions. Besides fighting corruption, we are also working on reforms and legislative drafting. That is why we have gathered all of you here to discuss the bills dedicated to making electric cars cheaper in Ukraine. That's very important for our country because the growth of the number of electric cars will in the future help to reduce electric dependency of the country and will improve the ecology. We do everything as MPs so that the bills are passed in the parliament as quickly as possible. The role of the public is also important here. That is why we have experts here who will tell about their arguments. Also, we hope that you will be helping us. We hope that you will help us disseminate this information. The Deputatskyi control also addresses the representatives of the coalition. We call upon passing these laws as soon as possible to make another step towards energy independence of Ukraine. And now I would like to give the floor to our co-chairman, Gennadiy Kryvosheya, MP. Good afternoon. In the first reading, you know, the draft has been voted for. 2 drafts have been voted for, and they are on the issues of reducing the tax burden and duty burden for bringing into Ukraine electric cars. During the first reading, we had a very serious discussion on that in the parliament. It was difficult to get this draft approved because many MPs believed that electric cars will be related to that this will be related to all electric transportation, the trams, the trolley buses. The code of electric cars is just the code for electric cars, and that is why everything is correctly drafted in the bill, and it was approved in the first reading, and now we are waiting for it to be approved in the second reading. Now the draft is ready to be submitted for the second reading. I believe that we will try to do everything so that it's considered next week, and this press conference will also help that. I would like to hear today from our experts, from representatives of this sector, because after the first reading, me and Maksym, we were accused in lobbying for money. If there's no business in Ukraine, then before you start accusing someone in lobbying for money, then think who can give this money. Now we don't have practically electric cars, and if we manage to do it so that the market of electric cars appears and operates, then this will be really some real reform of the new authorities. That means that we will get rid of energy dependency from Russia. If electric cars are working in Ukraine, then well, we will be able to start manufacturing in Ukraine our own electric accumulators and electric chargers, and that is a great thing. So then the whole electric car will be cheaper. That also means additional jobs. We compared several European countries where the market of electric cars is quite developed and very active. If we take Latvia, then the owners who have electric cars, the country basically pays 2,000 euros for to the person who buys this electric cars. In Denmark, the state pays 50% of the price of this car for those who will be using this car as a taxi. The taxi is the transportation which drives mostly and which affects the ecology mostly. We believe that the situation in the country is very difficult and no one can really be just spending the budgetary money. But because there's no market, I believe if we create a new market, that will not lead to reducing the revenues, but this will increase the revenues to the budget. So we are ready. And we believe that it is important for this draft to be passed. I would like to hear the opinion of our experts, the representatives of this market, to receive better substantiation for ourselves and for other MPs. Now, Maksym Polyakov, the MP of Ukraine, member of Deputatskyi control. Good afternoon. I would like to say, first of all, and that is what Gennadiy mentioned about lobbying, about some possible harm for the budget. It's excluded. We have 200 cars, electric cars, which were officially brought into the country, imported into the country. But if we take the figures for the last year, in the US, they sold 360,000 electric cars. The state is stimulating these processes and supporting them. And the champion of the world of electric cars is Norway, where 16% of all the transportation is electric cars. We know that energy is, and Norway is energy independent country, but they think about the economy, about the environment, and about the future population. And 16% of all the transportation in Norway are electric cars. If we don't think about our country, about the environment, we also need to understand that if we take just the economy, if we take electric car without excise tax, without all the others, then the electric car becomes quite affordable for a middle class. We can stimulate that, and within 3-5 years we can create a small sector. Besides that, we need to also organize the fueling stations. But the main thing is to become energy independent from the country aggressor, from Russia. And this way that draft is really important. We hope that we will get the support of not just MPs, but of the public, of the ecologists, because that is the step which we need today that will stimulate some points of growth. Also, we prepared the draft also on environmental issues, and that's about prohibition to manufacture polyethylene packages. We, as a group, Deputatskyi Control, we started working on that, and that is why it is important for us to get the support of the public.
Thank you, Maksym. And now the floor goes to direct market participants. So, Arseniy, the floor is yours. Good afternoon. About environment, just some facts, because we are short of time. The first argument: 80% of the atmosphere pollutions, these are the emissions from cars, and the biggest pollutants are the oxides of the heavy metals. Just in general, a pregnant woman, for pregnant woman, it's better to live somewhere in Carpathian Mountains and smoke a package of cigarettes per day than to reside in Kyiv during the last 9 months. Because of that gas emissions from cars, which are very harmful for lungs, they also depress the intellectual activity, the mind activity of our children. And electrocars, the electromobiles, they are very good from the investment point of view. This is actually this sector which will pay for itself, and we have the best conditions for development of this sector, because the fuel for electromobiles is rather high, and it approaches to the European level, while the electricity is rather cheap in Ukraine, and economically the use of electromobiles in Ukraine is 12 times more beneficial than in Europe, 7 times more beneficial than in Russia. That is, this will allow to create momentum for the sector development, this law, which is going to be passed, and it will allow to develop production of electromobiles in our country. Thus, this exemption, VAT exemptions for producers actually means that if they produce electromobiles in Ukraine and even buy spare parts from abroad, then these spare parts are cleared from VAT when electromobiles are sold in Ukraine. I believe this sector, when it is developed, may become a budget fill-in sector, and this will allow to develop our car production industry during the next 20 years. Just a short comment to what Arseniy mentioned. Also, I would like to point out to the cost of covering 100 kilometers by conventional car. It costs around 100 hryvnia, while when you use electromobile, this may cost you between 8 and 12 hryvnia per 100 kilometers. This shows that this is almost 10 times saving of money against conventional cars. This shows that electromobiles may become the biggest competitors of conventional cars in our country. Maybe this can become even a threat to the passage of this law after second reading. Thank you for the MPs control group for what they are doing. I'm representing a consultancy company in Ukraine, and I can provide you with statistics from abroad. We participated in developing the sectors for Estonian, for Latvian governments, and in terms of investments, this sector have already created jobs for several dozens of people, and by the end of this year, this may grow up to 1,000 new jobs. We produce engines in Western Ukraine, and we continue some projects related to the electromobile taxis and other types of electric transports. Electromobile sector creates equal conditions for all startup producers, so to say. And I do not think that in terms of conventional cars production, we have no chances to become competitors in terms of car producing in the international market. While in electromobile production, we still have a chance to become one of the leading companies, and we expect that actually by the year 2025, we may reach the figure of several hundred of thousand electric cars exported abroad. Also, we are able to create other types of electric transport, electric big trucks. We have also good potential in producing accumulators and batteries for these cars. In general, having requested for removal of duties for rather short period, we are creating good conditions for the sector development, which may add some 3% of annual GDP rate. Just a small comment. Ukraine has a huge potential of engineers, car sector engineers. We have electronic engineers. We have a huge number of this human resource for development of this market. And a short comment in addition to my colleague's point of view. What is an advantage of the electric transport and the attitude of local authorities? These days we heard a statement from the Kiev City Council about substitution of all the city council car park with the new electromobiles. Because they have calculated that they waste between 150 up to 200,000 hryvnia for gasoline we are speaking about Pechersk administration with these figures. If you look at the Kyiv city budget, we come with a figure up to 1 million of hryvnia, which are spent on fuel, on car fuel. And this brought the Kyiv City Council to the idea that they have saved money on this fuel, and thus they are willing to change their car park. They plan to sell out the park of the conventional cars what they have and buy new cars, even if they are expensive, and within 1 year they will return this money.
I hope that they will not be buying Teslas but Nissans. Mr. Kravtsov, managing partner ElectroCars. I was not talking about which in particular car. I remind you, you have 8 minutes left. We have 4 speakers, more, 1.5 minutes. Very briefly, we as importers are ready to suggest to Gennadiy, maybe he still has ties with Pechersk administration as soon as we cancel VAT and duties. We can switch the civil servants to ElectroCars, and they can even work in ElectroCars because that's so cheap type of transportation, and civil cars will not will just be staying in ElectroCars if we put them there. And the experience of the companies that start using ElectroCars say that every year they they save $2,000 a year, and this money is not sent to Russia but stays in the country. ElectroCars start electrostructure, a new sector which will lead to replacing all fueling stations, and these are things which make us exporters of technological solutions on infrastructure. And I believe that we can also suggest to support this draft to invite the owners of ElectroCars. There are about 100 of them now in Kyiv, and these owners got together on Saturday. They are ready to come to Verkhovna Rada to show how simple these cars are. They are not all Teslas. That's the transportation which is clean and quiet, and that's what Ukrainians need. And Mykhailo Goncharenko will finish. Advocacy activist, the representative of Risk Reduction Foundation. I would like first of all to thank our MPs for finding the opportunity and starting to promote this draft. This draft has been passed in the first reading, and they're lobbying. There is a lobby, but the lobby against these laws, and that is our oil and gas mafia. Till 2020, there will be 24 million. These are forecast. 24 million ElectroCars in the world. Out of them, only in 2014, in Ukraine, only 500 were imported. But there's another problem. Ukraine, being the member of the world community, has taken plenty of commitments on environment, and this draft is a small step so that Ukraine can prove to the world that we really do execute what we promise. Our mission is to help our MPs to get this draft passed and so that this percentage of imported electric cars goes up but not down with every year. Unfortunately, the law is not effective yet, and we have to go to Verkhovna Rada when there is a next reading, and we need to demand from MPs to perform on their commitments. We as MPs, we will be executing that. That's not to you, that's to your colleagues. You are doing something, but unfortunately, your efforts are not sufficient. Let's unite the efforts with the community, and the community is the force which will help you push these laws. It will not work otherwise. Thank you, Mikhail. Now several minutes for questions and answers. Please ask questions. One and a half minutes are left. Dniprovska Panorama. Could you please say, I am the representative of Dnipropetrovsk region. Do you see any that our Yuzhmash could be involved into manufacturing electric cars? Very briefly, that's the perspective for our plants. Once they were able to manufacture space ships, they will be able to manufacture electric cars. Thank you. Any other questions? The last question. Union. Because now the Ukrainian automobile market went down and the Ukrainians cannot really pay. How realistic is this segment of the market? How can that lead to reducing the dependency from energy resources? It's all about the price of the car now. In the past, that electric car would pay back in 5-6 years. Now it's less than 3 years. The market grows 70% a year. In some countries, 120% a year. When you buy it in 2.5 years, you practically get the return on investment, so to say, and then you start driving free of charge practically, because 5 hryvnias is nothing. And they understand that the Ukrainians will not soon start buying the cars that that use the fuel. Well, now there are several electric cars near Ukrainsky house and Ukrainian house, and you will be able